one of the things, I guess, I've always kind of thought of chiropractic being kind of what people consider hokey or, you know, things like that. And when they say, oh, it's not going to be able to help you with certain aspects of your life, it's just those people are very wrong. My husband and I have both seen firsthand how chiropractic care, just in wellness in general, but I've been with Heather for 2 years, probably. And my husband and I were struggling to have a kid, and so Heather was great. She kind of walked me through some different aspects of what we can try, and then just the kind of the adjustments and getting your body ready for, you know, conception. We tried anything from the temping, which I don't know if anyone's in here tried it. I found it very, very intriguing and interesting because I didn't know that that's how my body functioned. And then just the adjustments through a lot of positive reinforcements, you know, from her saying that it's going to be okay. And then after about 1.5 years total, not necessarily just trying to conceive and visiting with Heather doing that, we did actually conceive. My son just turned 6 months on Sunday. So obviously my life has changed. I left him at home with his dad as he was screaming. So it's been awesome. But as far as chiropractic care, it's amazing, even through my whole pregnancy, how that helped so tremendously. I had big problems with my sciatic nerve, and without chiropractic care, it would have been the most miserable experience ever. So with that, conception, just friendly atmosphere that Heather, you know, and Marley have both provided were great experiences, and I'm just a true believer in how that helped my husband and I through the challenge, I guess you want to call it. So awesome. But I'm excited to see what else she says today.
Thank you, Elsa.
Thank you.
Everybody, let's give her a round of applause. I think it's really hard to get up in front of a group of females that you don't know and be honest and real and share your story. It takes a lot of courage. So for Hillary to actually come up here and do that, we should all really be more like Hillary, because I think that was awesome. So, okay, I'm Dr. Heather Smith. I'm a health and wellness expert that specializes in the spine and nerve system with an extra specialty in pediatric, pregnancy, and female chiropractic care. So that's kind of where my niche is. Now, I'm used to talking to a room full of mostly all patients because we put on a lot of extended workshops and we get a lot of our practice members to come in to these workshops. But this one's a little different because, as Hillary was talking about, a lot of practice members who come to us initially struggling with conception or just wondering how the female body works get really great results with chiropractic care. So this workshop is a little different because it's more guests, which is awesome. We're super excited that you guys are here. And that brings me to the next point, actually, that I just want to recognize each of you for being here, especially the guests, of course my practice members that I love so much. But it tells me that you're an action taker just by coming to an event like this, and I love action takers, we all do, because you always get the best results to know that you're taking action on learning something to improve your health. So I do want to appreciate you all for being here, and I promise you you're going to learn something. I really truly don't think there's a better place that you can spend the next hour. So I just want to say you're in the right place. We're going to have an awesome night. I do want to say I am continually going to workshops, going to classes. I have to continue my education, get my CEs for the year. So I do a lot of education, and I always feel like I get more out of the message when I know the messenger. And like I said, I've got some guests in here, so I want to just take a minute and introduce my family. That's Dr. Marley. He's in the back of the room. And these are our two beautiful daughters, Nora and Quinn. Nora just turned 4. Quinny is 1.5, and they are just so fun. And the cool thing is, you guys, that this didn't come easy for us. We were on a journey at one point too, trying to figure out fertility, and I feel like that, on top of my extensive education in this topic, make me really a valuable resource as far as this goes. But yeah, they're our reason, they're our purpose. We love them dearly. They're the reason we wake up every day, and they're the reason we wake up in the middle of the night, right? They're all the moms out there, so we love them. But so they're the main thing to introduce myself, because they're my life. But also, secondly, I'm a chiropractor, and I always tell people chiropractic's not just what I do, it's literally who I am. Hi there. So I want people to know that we don't just practice chiropractic from 8 to 6 on Monday through Thursday. We literally live this lifestyle day in and day out. And we actually make it a promise to our patients every single day. We have it hanging in our office that we promise you guys that we're going to practice what we preach, right? If you go to a dentist with rotten, crooked teeth, are you going to want to take their advice? If you go to a medical doctor who's super overweight, looks fatigued, looks, tired, worn down, are you going to want to take his advice, his or her advice? So we try to maintain this lifestyle that we preach to everybody about health and vitality so that you guys can trust the advice that we give you. And then finally, it's important that you guys know our mission of our office, which is to educate, empower, and adjust as many families as possible on their journey towards health and true wellness. So just by you guys being here tonight and listening to the message, you're helping us fulfill our mission. So we really, really appreciate that. Okay, now, finally, once again, we put on tons of these workshops. We love doing them, otherwise we wouldn't keep doing them. But we also love when people get a lot out of it, and it usually seems to be the pattern that people who engage with me, answer questions that I ask, or just partake in the workshop actually get a whole lot more out of it than somebody who just sits there, right? I take it you guys are here because you want to be here. There's something you want to learn. So I just ask, give me some involvement. Let's have fun in here. We don't need to be asking questions during the workshop. By all means, I'll answer questions afterward. But just, I do ask you to be that person that's engaged and involved in this. I think you'll get so much more out of it. And I do have to ask everybody's permission in here to be open, to be honest, to be real and raw, because some of this information can be uncomfortable for some people to hear. And I'm actually going to be sharing parts of my story that I've never shared with anybody before, and then we're going to be talking about some things that can be kind of touchy, kind of uncomfortable for people. So this is my fair warning for everybody that I'm giving you permission to be real and raw and honest up here. Okay? All right, so I just want to get my head wrapped around the crowd. So I know that there's a vast array of different types of people in here on different parts of their journey, and I just kind of want to, before I get started, just wrap my head around who's in here. So, if you are at all trying to conceive, somewhere along the journey, whether it's very recent, whether it's like, hey, my spouse and I maybe want to have a kid in a year or two, or if you've been trying and you've tried everything for the past year and a half, is anybody in the room on that trying to conceive pathway? Awesome. Okay, cool. So who in this room is on the pathway of I've had all the kids I want and I don't really want any more children, but I also don't want to be in birth control, so I just want some more natural family planning tips? Awesome. Okay, and then who in the room is here, if there's anybody left, who just is curious and just wants to know more about the female body? Awesome. Okay, I love it. I've got all three types. I didn't know that. So I'm going to try to hit on all of these, and like I said, if at the end there's questions that I didn't cover, please holler at me, okay? All right, so like I said, I want permission to be real and honest here, because this is a vulnerable thing for me to be sharing my story, but I think it helps validate the fact that I've been through the struggles of trying to conceive. So I just want to share where this started. I was in junior high and high school, and I was a very active person. I'm a small stature anyway, so I've never been very big, very heavy, but I never absolutely had an eating disorder. So I was just small and very active, and I never ever had a regular menstrual cycle. So I would go in every year for my annual sports physical, and my doctor would say, have you started menstruating? And I would say no, right? And so every year he was like, okay, well, we're going to have to talk about this next year. And then I'd go the next year. And this progressed from age 13-ish on, right? And by the time I was at my 16-year-old sports physical, he asked me, and I still said no. And he said, okay, within one more year, when I see you next year, if you're not having a regular menstrual cycle, we're going to have to start this with birth control pills. And I was like, okay, because honestly, I was raised in a loving family, very loving. I would not trade my childhood for anything. Wonderful parents, they did above and beyond what they needed to ever do for me. But I was raised in a medical model household, so that was just, to me, that was the next step. We better start forcing this period, right? That's what I thought. So actually that year in school, I did have my first menstruation. I didn't have another one for 9 months. So when I went back, the doctor asked me, I told him the truth, and he said, okay, you're 17, we gotta get this thing working. So I got put on birth control pills, okay? Now, oral contraceptives, age 17. Now, do you guys think that worked? Did it regulate my cycle? Absolutely, for the first little bit. I mean, I literally was having, for the first time in forever, a regular menstrual cycle. I was having what I thought was a cycle every month, to the T. I could tell what date it was going to start. I just had to remember to take my pill, right? And at that age too, man, I was like, oh, my cramps are better, my acne was clearing up, all these perks as a teenage girl too. And then eventually, something changed, and I got in college, and I started having problems in my female organs, and I'd never experienced that before, and it was uncomfortable for me. So I'd go to the doctor and I'd say, why am I spotting mid-cycle and then spotting throughout my cycle and then having a regular period too? And they said, must be because your estrogen is not strong enough. You're on the lowest, I was on orthotricycline low, which is the very lowest dose, right? So they said, let's up that. Okay. So I upped my dosage. Maybe worked for a month, and then I was spotting again. So I went back to the same doctor. Same thing's happening. Well, we must just need to up your dose again. Okay, so throughout this, I started having other problems. I would never in my life have had a yeast infection. I don't know how many people in here have. Don't raise your hand because it's embarrassing, but like I said, I'm being honest. They're uncomfortable, okay? They are terrible. It's confusing, it's uncomfortable, you just feel awful, and you have to be treated for them because it's just a very uncomfortable feeling. So I would go to the doctor and say, listen, not only am I spotting, but now I'm having yeast infections. So here I am being treated for yeast infections almost chronically every couple of months, and I'm still having spotting issues. There was no answers for me, right? I even moved to a different town and saw a different OB, but I got the exact same answers. I was frustrated, right? I was very frustrated, but I was kept being told this was literally the only answer. But throughout this entire thing, does anybody think that some doctor sat down with me and said, listen, your symptoms that you're experiencing are because you're on a synthetic hormone? Not a single one. Not one. So I'm sitting here thinking my body's broken, something's seriously wrong with me, and maybe the only answer is a stronger dose. It was sad. And then in the mix of all this, I came home from one of my college summers, and I go in and get my annual exam, and of course, all the Gardasil shots were on TV as be one less, right? So my mom was like, you need to talk about getting the HPV vaccine. I did. That led to other problems that could be in the whole entire workshop on its own. But what I'm saying is it was kind of like fuel to the fire that I was already experiencing in my female organs. So what is the definition of insanity? Yeah, it's a little cold. Can you change that at all? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, but expecting a different result, right? To some people, that's some of our definition of insanity. So that's what I was doing, but it wasn't really my fault because I was being led by people who were supposed to be my teacher, my doctor, telling me how to do this properly. But step in chiropractic college, right? So I knew I was going to be a doctor of some sort in undergrad. I was in chemistry pre-health. That's what I majored in. I had my minor in psychology. I felt very highly educated in the science realm, but never, ever, ever learned anything about my body or the female system in college. So still, here I am starting doctoral school, no clue what's going on, and I'm still having all these issues, okay? So I was in first trimester school there, and we had a class called embryology, and our teacher spent an entire class period talking about contraceptives. And I literally was blown away because nobody had ever taught me that before. Not my pharmacist who gave them to me, and not my medical doctors, upon many of them, who prescribed them to me. So I was just like, what? This is all making sense to me. Like my brain was going crazy, but it wasn't just me. It was a lot of my girlfriends at school too. Because we all went to the bathroom afterwards and we were washing our hands, and every single one of us was like, did you know that? No. Did you know that? No. So we all got off birth control, kind of like a big party. And it was awesome because I needed to get off of them. But what do you guys think happened when I got off the pill? Yeah, but it took, that's really exactly it, but it took a very long time. Very long time. So I actually didn't have a menstrual cycle for 18 months. A year and a half. Talk about scary, right? But guess what? I was on these pills for 6 to 7 years. I don't remember the exact amount of time. Literally on a hormone replacement pill pretty much for 6 to 7 years. My ovaries were shut down. They literally didn't know how to work anymore. So here I am, not menstruating, not on the birth control pill, but all my symptoms were gone, right? Everything was gone. I was not cycling. But then I finally did. And then after another year and a half, I started having a regularly occurring. So literally 3 years of my life, it took my reproductive organs to heal after the assault that they'd been put under, okay? And then after that, and by regular, back then, I would have a cycle every 40 to 60 days. So it was very spread out, but hey, it was there. And we decided, hey, we want to have a baby. So we started trying to conceive. And I did learn a ton about this issue and about the female body in chiropractic college. I learned so much. Yet it was hard for me to implement because my cycle wasn't normal. So I didn't know how to yet conceive. I knew I was having about a 6-day cycle, but when am I ovulating? Am I ovulating, right? I was frustrated because my friends, they got to try every month. They had monthly cycles once trying to conceive. And here we were, every 2 to 3 months if we were lucky, we got to try to conceive, right? And we get pregnant. It was awesome. But we had a miscarriage. So that was not awesome. And then a couple months later, we got pregnant again. We had another miscarriage. So here I am, just frustrated, right? I'm beginning to doubt my body. I'm going back into that like whirlwind of, am I ever going to be able to become a mom? It was scary, it was sad, and I relied a lot on my education and on Dr. Marley's education, knowing that my body was just not ready, and I wasn't doing anything wrong, and Dr. Marley didn't do anything wrong. It was just that it wasn't a viable pregnancy, and that's hard to say, especially to somebody who's having one or just had a miscarriage. but I feel like it really built me up and made me to where I am today. So then we got pregnant third time, and it's little Norgine. And it was a healthy, awesome pregnancy. She was born at home. It was beautiful and wonderful. And then we had Queenie Girl a couple years later, no issues. And now, literally, like, my cycle has never been more regular. I was hearing Hillary actually talking about it after having a baby. Her hormones are so different now. I don't know how many other moms in this room feel like this, but literally, it's almost annoying now because my cycle's so regular. I'm like, I kind of miss only needing to have a cycle every 60 days, right? So no, it's literally 2 AT regular, and I can tell when I'm pre-ovulatory, I can tell the day I ovulate, and I can tell when I'm post-ovulatory. So I want other women to be able to understand their bodies a little bit more, and I don't want this to be your story. Don't let my 7, 8, 9-year journey become yours or your daughter's, okay? So I feel like I finally have my body back. Like I said, I'm more healthy and regular than ever, and I just want to help you. So that's why you guys are here tonight, most of you, some of you. But anyway, look at these statistics. They're really staggering. I know it's kind of repetitive, but it jumps into the number and percent of women with impaired fertility and then the ones who have actually used infertility services. This is according to the CDC, and what they mean by impaired fertility is that you've been trying to have a baby for a year with no protection and you're unsuccessful. So 12.3% of women are unsuccessful or have impaired fertility. That's a large number of people. When you break it down to the couples, it's actually 1 in 7 couples struggle conceiving. So it's very common. And to me, it's like we gotta do something about this, right? We need to educate women more. I don't care if it starts in school or outside of school, but we need to get to these ladies because we were literally put on this planet to do 2 things, survive and reproduce. That is what our bodies are always trying to maintain, is a homeostasis so that we can survive, and then our bodies are literally made to reproduce. So if we cannot, it's truly a sign that there's something in our body that's malfunctioning, okay? Now, it's important for me to just step in here and kind of interject because I'm a chiropractor, but my specialty is females, is pediatrics, it's pregnancy, and I just do things different than anybody else who would if you would go to a medical doctor or somebody else, an infertility clinic. And it's important to understand that we look at the body from the inside out. So chiropractic always tries to heal and get the cause of the problem rather than masking it with a symptom band-aid, basically, okay? So we take a very wildly different approach to infertility because we're looking at it as what's going on in your neurology, whereas most medical offices would look at it as what's going on with your hormones and your chemicals because there's some sort of imbalance. And to them, it's like, let's change them. Let's change your hormones, let's change your chemicals through a drug. Okay, but what we try to do is we go deeper, we go more upstream. Let's figure out what's going on in the neurology first because the neurology is what controls the hormones and chemicals. So let's see if this is the problem before we jump more invasively into drugs, okay? So, like I said, more upstream. First comes neurology, then comes hormone chemical, and then comes the physical manifestation of the problem, okay? This is just a side note, but I thought this was really cool. It's just fun to think about this. I mean, how many women in here have been at like summer camp or lived with a sister or something and you notice that your cycles kind of sync together, right? It's pretty crazy. So it's actually due to your pheromones, which are just chemical substances that are produced and released in the environment by mammals that affect our behavior or physiology. So pheromones are what cause us to link our cycles up. So that's interesting, but it's also what causes us to have like that attraction to our mate or to our spouse when we're supposed to be attracted to them. So we should have an inherent built-in design to be more attracted to our spouse in our fertile window. Most people don't, or if they do, they don't realize that that's what's going on. So it's like every month when you feel a little friskier than normal, you should take it as your body saying, hey, listen, we're ready to like make a baby, so let's try, okay? So we need to pay attention to those subtle clues because they're there for a reason, okay? If you're not feeling them, A, we're either not in tune with our body enough, or B, once again, I'm wondering what is going on in the neurology that you cannot feel those things, okay? And it's important to know here that it kind of goes back to that survival and reproduction. That's what we're kind of put on the planet to do. However, surviving is a lot more important than reproducing, okay? And the reproductive system is not the most important system that's there for survival, right? We've got the cardiovascular system, we've got the respiratory system, even the digestive system. It's important things that move through our body and we excrete them, right? So reproductive system kind of falls by the wayside. So when something needs to get kind of, hey, we'll deal with you later, it's going to be our reproductive system. So it's kind of a sign that when our reproductive system is not working properly, there's something going on in our body, there's something going on in the health of our body, okay? And it's important to know, this is just a side note, we have no men in the room. I think we had 2 men signed up, but they must have been like, woo, room full of ladies, I am out of here. But just so you guys know, men struggle with this too, so it's not always the female's problem. Sometimes it's the man. Actually, 7.5% of sexually experienced men do see infertility clinics as well. So it's, we had about 12.3%, they have about 7.5%. So some of it can be actually the sperm count and the swimmers and all that sort of stuff too, okay? But we're focusing tonight just on females. So there's 3 key players here in order to conceive a baby. Number 1, proper ovarian function. Number 2, proper uterine function. And then finally, open fallopian tubes, okay? Those all 3 have to be working properly if we want to conceive. But I'm just going to say one more time, upstream is the nerve system. Okay? If your nerve system is not supplying the proper amount of nerve flow to any of these organs here, you can have malfunction in them. And I say that because I see it in my practice, and it's awesome because it's so cool to see this restored just by chiropractic care, okay? So these are, I think you guys have handouts. I kind of just left you little notes down there, but this could be another entire workshop in itself, some causes of unexplained infertility. But I'm going to kind of breeze through it. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on it, but keep in mind I can always do a whole other workshop just on toxins and lifestyle and diet if we want to. But basically, the number 1 thing that I notice when talking to women of all ages is just the lack of knowledge about it. Like, people are just confused. I don't understand how my body works. I don't think I ovulate on day 14, but I don't know how to tell. Or, people will say, I started 12 days late, but their cycle regularly runs 30 days or, 40 days. And so it's like, you're not 12 days late. That's actually just the length of your cycle. But that just means we're timing things wrong, okay? So the confusion is major. Lifestyle is major. The things that we're putting in our body in the form of foods, okay, and then also all these environmental toxins that we are surrounded by. Now, I realize that some of this stuff can never be changed. Like, we live and breathe the air that we're going to live and breathe, right? So I just encourage people, wherever you're at on your health journey, try to control your toxins where you can, okay? Nerve system I've talked about, but I haven't talked much about stress and how that can actually correlate to or lead to fertility issues, but we will talk about that a little bit. And prescription drugs, you guys, a lot of times medications cause infertility. Sometimes medications cause accidental pregnancies, right? Like, it happens both ways. Exercise, too much or too little. There's a direct correlation between anovulation, so not ovulating, and being obese. So that's a big problem, okay? That's something that, once again, we can attack, right? And then sometimes people who over-exercise, like myself when I was in high school, right? I had what they termed amenorrhea, meaning I just did not have a menstrual cycle. But you gotta understand, it's so multifactorial. But there's so many next steps that we can take on each of these little notches that can make a big, big change in our body, okay? So just let's talk a smidge about diet. Now, we've been fed for the longest time that fat makes us fat, right? I mean, Americans just have been fed that thanks to the USDA and the FDA and all sorts of stuff. Their food pyramids. But fat does not make us fat. Trans fats make us fat and unhealthy, right? But we need to be getting fat in our diet. Your reproductive organs literally need fat. They need fat to function, okay? So does your brain. So we need to be getting saturated fats in the form of healthy animal products. I'll talk about that in a minute. And we need to be getting fats from plants. We need to be eating avocados. We need to be eating nuts, olive oil, coconut, good healthy fats, okay? We need to be consuming those. That in itself will increase your chances of reproduction. And we need to limit all of these inflammatory foods like refined sugars, grains, and dairy, especially while trying to conceive. I think this seems overwhelming to people, but it's like, hey, if you do this for 3 months and you get pregnant and then you realize, like, I want to house a healthy pregnancy so I continue it through my pregnancy, it's one of those things that will catch on. It's not the easiest change, but if it's, I understand most women because I've been there. If you're trying to conceive, you'll try almost anything. So change the diet. I promise it will help. And then lower your consumption of both caffeine and alcohol. Try to eliminate it if you can. The reason I say if you can is because I do love my morning coffee, so I know many people do as well. Now, truly, you guys, if we were eating the way we were biologically designed to eat, like our ancestors ate, we should experience higher fertility rates as well as greater desires to have intercourse during our fertile window. That's what I'm trying to really get across here. So, Couple extra buzzes here. We can try drinking hot lemon water in the morning. When you first wake up, it's a really good pick-me-up, and it's also really good for detoxifying your body as well as alkalizing it. So our body is constantly trying to maintain a proper pH balance from the acidic realm and the basic or alkaline realm. So when we consume the lemon water, it kind of alkalizes our body, which is better for conception. So drinking hot lemon water in the morning is an easy thing to start adding, okay? Once again, eating real whole foods. Veggies and fruits, if you can pick something up and eat it without tearing open plastic or opening a bag, that's the food you want to be eating, okay? And completely eliminate the processed foods, at least while you're trying to conceive. At least give it 120 days. Give it a good bout, okay? And if you're eating meat, which you should, make it healthy meat. When we eat meat that is laced with hormones and antibiotics and sick, fat cows fed grains, and there's, you know, if we eat sick, fat cows, what's going to happen to us? We become a sick, fat cow. Truthfully, okay, guys, we need to be eating healthy foods. We need to be eating grass-fed, free-range animal products, all right? And I understand, to everybody and to all of us, you know, money is a factor in all of this, but, you know, make the changes where you can make them, and you'll notice results, okay? I already talked about getting fat back in your diet, and completely remove trans fats. So those are the things in, like, crackers and cookies and candy bars, all those packaged foods, okay? Trans fats are awful for the body. Like I said, I can't dig into this too deeply, but I wrote stuff down, and you guys can go home and do some more research, and I'd be happy to put on just a nutrition workshop for pregnancy if we ever needed to. Other lifestyle changes, quit smoking is an obvious one, but you know, some people really do struggle with that, but I will tell you it's harder to quit smoking during pregnancy if you're still smoking before you get pregnant. So try to stop as soon as possible. Regular exercise. I always tell people, get 30 minutes a day every day that you eat. So that means every day, right? I mean, if you think about it, we used to literally have to exercise in our life. That was part of what we did. It was, now we have to supplement with it. Now it's like, oh, we gotta go to the gym. I mean, I'm guilty too. I'm a gym goer, but back in the day when we were hunter-gatherers or we were having tribes, like we would walk miles and miles a day and move around and change with the weather and hide from predators, right? Whereas now, it's not in our lifestyle to exercise, and most of us have desk jobs. So we find ourselves sitting a ton, right? So if we can get 30 minutes of exercise in, and I want good exercise. I want you panting, sweating, breathing hard, right? I want you getting your heart rate up. So for some people, a walk is great, but for most of us in this room, we're gonna need to step it up a notch, right? And change it up too, because you'll get bored if you're always doing the elliptical or if you're always whatever it is. So I always tell people, change it up. Go to some classes if you need to. Do interval training. Just make yourself crave that adrenaline high, because you will. Try to avoid pesticides as much as possible and try to buy organic produce. There's a website called the Environmental Working Group. I don't think I wrote that down, but they do have on their website a Dirty Dozen and Clean 15. I don't know how many people have heard of that. So they actually recommend, hey, if you are on a limited budget and you need to buy only the most important vegetables and fruits to buy organic, these are the ones, right? And whereas these ones are pretty clean, so if you can't buy organic, you can buy these ones, you know, non-organic. So we're talking things that you would eat the skin of, like an apple. You're going to want to try to buy organic, right? Things that you peel with thick peels, or like a squash or something that you're going to not eat the outside, you're pretty safe not going the organic route. But that website really breaks that down for you. Okay? And then just, I mean, how many of us, like, ever sat back and realized how nasty the stuff is that we clean our house with, right? It is gross. And like, Angel's in this room, and I gotta say, my daughter goes to her mom's daycare, and one of the reasons I loved her daycare is because I stepped inside and it smelled like a home. A lot of daycares, you step inside and you just smell bleach, you smell toxic chemicals, and you're bringing your baby there. You're bringing your little infant to this house just smelling of these fumes. Miss Berta's house smells amazing, which is one of the reasons that I loved it. And I do understand that a lot of these state places are held to really high standards of how they clean their stuff and what they Lysol with and how they use bleach every other day or something crazy like that. But it is not healthy for those kids, and it is not healthy for us if we're trying to conceive or just be on a health journey in general. So we need to get back to, you know, safer cleaning products like vinegar and water, right? Or there's a product called Shackley out there that they sell really great gentle cleaning products. There's Melaleuca, I think people have heard of that one too. So there are other options, and they're just as good at getting the germs, okay? So also aluminum-free deodorant, we're going to talk about that in just a minute when we talk about our skin And I don't know, another thing, you guys, home renovations, has anybody ever been involved in one of those and smelled all the stuff, right? It's nasty. There's drywall dust in the air, you're getting new carpet that's off-gassing, you're staining your new banister that off-gasses. All of those chemicals and those toxins that we're breathing in are not environmentally friendly, and they're not safe, and they're not good for, you know, somebody who's trying to conceive, okay? And then finally, our skin, you guys. We forget that our skin is literally our largest organ. It is. It's a living organ, okay? And it's a detox organ at that. So we're constantly putting these lotions, potions, and creams on, chasing the next greatest beauty product, right? And we're literally substituting our health, and especially our reproductive health, for that. So we need to be using more natural products, and we need to realize, I always like to say, if you wouldn't put it in your mouth, don't put it on your skin, okay? Because it's all getting seeped into your bloodstream just the exact same way, okay? Read the ingredients too. If you guys look at the back and the ingredient list is this long and you can't pronounce 80% of the names, it's probably not safe. And I do have to share this, actually. My best friend's a chiropractor in Omaha, and she was on a really long journey of trying to conceive, and really frustrating, because she was like me, chiropractor, why am I struggling conceiving, right? And in college, she was actually married in chiropractic college, and they were trying to have a baby and unsuccessful. And it was hard on their marriage, really hard. I mean, they almost divorced. It was sad for me because I loved them both. And she tried the Clomid route at least 3 times. She went on Clomid, and it did not work for her. And she told me it just felt like a job. It was like, honey, we have to tonight because the drugs that we're on is going to make, you know, I'm only fertile for these 2 days or whatever. And it was really hard for them. And they weren't successful. And then we graduated, and about 2 years later, I was pregnant with Nora. That was hard for me too, because she's my best friend, and I have to sit there pregnant when she's been trying for 5 years, you know? And I talked her through some of this, and she's like, I can do that. I can change my lifestyle. And she did. She's changed mainly her what she was eating, not even as strict as I even showed you guys. She changed what she was eating, though, and she changed all of her products in her house, her cleaning products, her deodorant. She started making like her own laundry detergent. She went big here. And within 2 months, she was pregnant. So the lifestyle changes and the toxins that come with our everyday life are huge. They really are, okay? So products should be made from ingredients derived in nature, not a laboratory, okay? Some of my favorites are Primarily Pure and the Beauty Counter. They have a lot of stuff as far as skincare, hair care, makeup, all sorts of stuff like that. So check them out. Okay. And it sounds weird, but you should literally shop at natural grocers for your products. I mean, most people think Target, and Target is coming around with some organic stuff, I will admit, but like Walmart and places like that, you're not going to find the ingredient-friendly soaps and shampoos and stuff like you would at a Trader Joe's or a natural grocers. That's where we get all of ours from, unless it's online, like Primarily Pure. And most people complain like, oh my gosh, my hair is so greasy, this stuff doesn't work for me, but just give it a little bit of time, your body will adapt to it, okay? All right, let's talk about our cycle, okay? I just like to tell people our monthly cycle is more like our monthly report card. Like, it's literally your health report card. How healthy are you? Is your cycle normal? Is it pain-free? Are you symptom-free? And is it regular? Because then, if so, yeah, you're healthy. If you're having, like I was, an abnormal cycle that's painful, symptomatic, you're having spotting, whatever that may be, it's a sign that your body's not super healthy inside, okay? So,
do you mind if I ask a quick question?
Go for it.
What do you consider an abnormal cycle then?
So if it's varying, so like if your cycle is 40 days, then you range from 37 to 43, that's a good healthy cycle. You know, flirt with the days a little bit, but if it's like 1 month you're a 28-day cycle, the next day you're a 50, the next month you're a, does that make sense?
It does. Does it also, like, could it deviate between, like, I don't know if this is TMI, but like if there's,
hey, you heard my story, okay?
like too little bleeding one cycle and then like almost non-existent the next month. So like,
it's interesting you say that. So actually, and this was news to me when I was researching this, but if you have a normal cycle, you should actually only fill, what did I find out? The teaspoons I can't remember, but it was like,
isn't it like 3 teaspoons?
Yes, thank you, 3 teaspoons. But when you break it down to the number of tampons you're supposed to be using, it's alarming, because I'm guaranteeing you most of us use way more than that. And I know we have to change it regularly and stuff, but it should only fill, I think it even said 5 supers or 10 regulars. And that's minimal, right? But if you have light bleeding, you're probably like, no, that's not too much. But most people have the opposite. Most people have more clotting or more passing. But yeah, you should spill at least right around 3 teaspoons, which is hard to measure. I understand that.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's not even me now, because mine's like almost to the point where it's like non-existent.
That is interesting. So then I would say that's a little abnormal.
Yeah. Okay, we can talk about that later.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so I already kind of talked about contraceptives, you guys, but this is alarming for me. Literally, all of our practice members in here saw this question on our question of the week, but this birth control was the first medicine ever ever prescribed to people to be taken daily who were not sick. So, right, we expect to go to the doctor and get medication when we're sick, but we're going to the doctor to get medication to take daily, but we are not sick. But guess what? It made me sick. I think it makes a lot of people sick. And now there's 20 different birth control options. Like, we're talking not just the pill, but we've got IUDs, and we've got shots, and we've got, you know, Mirena. We've got all sorts of stuff that we can use now. It's just a little bit alarming. So it's also one of the very most common prescribed medications in the United States, and it's not even for pregnancy prevention. Look at my case. I was 16, 17 years old. I was put on birth control simply for regulating my cycle. Now people are put on it the same as me. Painful cramps, you have acne, you have PCOS, you have endometriosis. It breaks my heart when I have little 16, 17, 18-year-old girls in my office that are put on birth control pills for endometriosis, and their doctors tell them, you will be on this forever until you want to have a baby. And I'm like, no. What do you mean? That means like you're 17. That means you're going to be on this at least 8 years, right? By the time you get off, you think it's just 1 month off, bam, let's have this baby. And it does not work that way. So it breaks my heart. But they're told that this is the only option for endometriosis. And even if we operate and scrape off that tissue, it'll likely grow back. So you might as well just be on birth control. Because let's just shut down your system, because that's what it does. It's completely, it's a Band-Aid. It overrides our own hormones with strong, strong synthetic hormones. But, I mean, do Band-Aids ever cure anything? They don't, right? They might make it, they might cover it up. Yeah, they might allow your body to heal with a scab, right? But Band-Aids aren't the cure. They're never the cure, okay? So, here's what I want you guys to know. A normal cycle. So the follicular phase is what happens before ovulation. It's called follicular phase because you're building a follicle, okay? It should be anywhere from 7 to 21 days, okay? Ovulation should occur on 1 day, okay? And then luteal phase should be exactly 14 days. And if it's not, it should be very consistent at 13 or 15 or whatever you run at, but it should be 14 days. So your monthly cycle, a healthy monthly cycle, should add up to anywhere between 21 to 35 days. And I'm going to tell you guys, whether you're 21 or you're 35, you can get pregnant. We just got to figure out if you're ovulating and how to time it, okay? So 28 days, it's literally the average number between them. It's not even that the average number of people have a 28-day cycle. So we all get confused on there, okay? So this is a better picture of this. So over here is pre-ovulatory through here. This is the day of ovulation, and then this is post-ovulatory. So you can see pre-ovulatory phase is a lot longer, right? So usually 10 to 35 days this graph tells us. So like most people still think they always ovulate in the middle day of their menstrual cycle, and that is so wrong, so far from the truth, right? Because you can all see, if this is a 35-day cycle, or let's pretend this is a 40-day cycle, and I'm going to show you some pictures here soon, but if this is a 40-day cycle and you have a 14-day post-ovulatory phase, then you're not ovulating until day 26. That's not day 20. You're not in the middle of your cycle, right? So a lot of people are just clear missing their window because they don't know when they ovulate. A, because they've never tried to figure it out, or B, because our nervous system's not talking to us properly like it needs to. So yeah, you're gonna have way more variation in your number of days in follicular. This should be consistent. At your consistent, it should be right around 14, okay? Because in order for an egg to implant and then an embryo to start growing, before you start flushing it out, you need a good 14 days. So anywhere around that is what's healthy, okay? And then the rest of this, you can just kind of see the follicle growing, right? You can see what happens to estrogen versus progesterone. We're going to talk about that when we get into the cervical mucus changes here in a minute. Once again, just another picture of this, but it's just to show you, ladies, that you don't need a 28-day cycle to have a baby, okay? You can have a long cycle where you don't ovulate till, day 16 or later, right? You can have a normal cycle where you ovulate when they say you should, or you can have a short cycle, but as long as your post-ovulatory phase is relatively consistent, you can get pregnant. We just gotta figure out if and when you're ovulating, okay? Anybody, this is an important thing, so does it make sense, or do I need to dig deeper into this? Because this is like one of the big take-home points of the night, is understanding that we might say, we just got off our cycle, right? And we're waiting until day 14. We think we time everything right, and then we don't start our period until day 40. Day 14 was nowhere near when we ovulated. Does that make sense?
Does a blood test help determine?
Blood test, I mean, not, so basically, here's what I recommend, and I'm gonna go over this in a minute, is really just the temping thing, because it's so accurate, you don't pay for it, you know, and you don't have to keep going in and get sticks, like am I ovulating today? What's my estrogen levels today? What's my progesterone levels today? The other thing is, they have these things called the OPK sticks, or whatever they call them, where you pee on them, and they basically give you a smiley face if you're ovulating, or a sad face if you're not. But those things are expensive. I've actually never purchased those, but basically what those things are trying to show you is, are you having that spike?
Isn't there a blood test that's FSH?
Yeah, follicle stimulating hormone, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but you can get your FSH tested, and then you can kind of determine, like, basically, if you have a long, short, or mid-cycle, but you can also kind of just look at your past cycles. I don't know if you have a phone app or what, but just be like, okay, my cycles tend to be about 32 days, so I'm probably ovulating about day 18. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to dig a little deeper to that in just a minute here, but take-home points. Don't expect a 28-day cycle. It's not the norm, okay? It's just not. It's just an average, okay? And once again, you can get pregnant wherever your cycle is. I mean, look at me. I got pregnant with Margina. We were having 60-day cycles, so it can be done. You just got to figure out your body, and just don't miss your fertile window, okay? So first thing first, I do have to just mention this. I'm reading this book currently. I'm not done with it. I think I wrote it down, but if not, please write this down. I can't say I love it because I haven't finished it, but I am into it. And it's basically talking about how sometimes even when we are ovulating, having people like me who are having recurrent miscarriages, it's actually a problem with our eggs, that our eggs just are not, we're not having strong, healthy eggs, which can be coming from, you know, just lifestyle factors. So she digs deep into what to do to make your eggs stronger. And she's once again shares her story. She was very open and honest. She actually had to go the in vitro route with a surrogate mother, but using her eggs. So it's a really interesting story. And she changed her lifestyle. But eggs take about 120 days to mature. So it's like if you say, I want to get pregnant in the next 6 months, 4 months out, man, you've got to change your lifestyle. That's why I was saying give it 120 days. You've got to start doing the things that we talked about and give it a good 120 days. That way you know you're producing really good, healthy eggs. And you don't have to worry that your miscarriage might have been because, shoot, man, I just wasn't, you know, at this point my body wasn't healthy enough to produce a good egg. And it's not like 1 month. It's not like, oh, I mean, the follicle that you spit out this month, you started building 4 months ago. Does that make sense? So this book's really great. And then it's not everybody's issue, but I feel like it's just a good place to start because so many people struggling with infertility spend a lot of time on the internet with like a lot of different answers, and some of it can be misleading, and we can be actually taking supplements that are hindering our chances of conceiving, and she's very educated and knowledgeable on this, so you can look into that too. Okay, let's see. So let's talk about some ovulation indicators. This is where things get a little dicey. So we're going to be talking extensively about charting basal body temperature. Are we doing good on time, everybody? Okay, awesome. So I'll be talking about this, and I know it sounds like a job, but I'm telling you guys right now, it's nothing like the job of taking Clomid and having to, you know, try to have sex when you're on your only fertile time, because that was really hard and stressful. I've done this. I would still do it if I didn't know my body to a T. I would still rely on that. So I'm going to dig deep with you guys. Cervix positioning. When you're fertile, so this involves checking your cervix basically, your cervix should be high, open, and soft on the days that you're fertile, okay? The days that you're not fertile, your cervix will be lower, closed, and kind of firm, okay? I don't have any models to show you guys that, but I told you it's going to get dicey here. So just know, if you do cervix checks, it'll be a little bit higher up when you're fertile. It might even be really hard to touch, okay? Mucus changes we're going to be talking extensively about, and that's really important. Nipple sensitivity, another sign that you're ovulating if you have excessively sensitive nipples during a day or two. And then there's a term called Mittelschmerz. Anybody heard of that? Yeah. Awesome. Cool. So it's German for mid-cycle pain. So basically you'll feel like a little bit of pain in your ovary areas literally on the day you ovulate. But some women just think it's gas pain or just think like they have a little upset tummy for a day or something like that, but it's truly their ovaries are letting go of an egg, and it releases usually a little bit of blood too, so it can be a little inflammatory process, and it can create some pain. So once again, pay attention to your body a little bit with that too. Okay, this is the diciest part. So we're going to talk about cervical mucus. I feel bad for the guests out there eating their dinner. Okay, but this is important. So cervical mucus and the changes that occur with it come from changes in our hormone estrogen, okay? So remember how we were on that one graph and you guys could see the estrogen climbing, right, and then dipping. So due to that hormone, that will cause the changes in our cervical mucus. So you'll notice it dry, sticky, creamy, and then egg white, which they like to call EWCM, egg white cervical mucus. That's the fertile stuff. That's the stuff you want. When you notice that, you're fertile. That's when you should really be trying to conceive. And the more fertile the mucus, the more likely your chances, okay? The reason being, it's actually really fascinating and awesome. The consistency of it is really great for the sperm to live in for a couple days, as well as it's got literal sperm escalators that like zip those things up there really fast. So if sperm had to swim on their own, it would take them days to reach the fallopian tubes, but this cervical mucus is just like their escalators that zips them right up there. It's really cool. So, and it's also got the perfect pH balance, so that, you know, I'm sure you guys have all heard, but you don't actually have to have sex the day you're ovulating. You can actually, it can be like a 4 to 5 day window if you have good cervical mucus, because the sperm can actually live in that pH balance for a long time, okay? So it's super important. It enhances your fertility. And it's important to know that people who've been on a Mirena or a progestin-based birth control, it literally prevents the formation of the fertile cervical mucus. So sometimes it'll take a long time for your body to learn how to rebuild that. Okay.
Is that even a mini pill?
The mini pill?
Yeah, the progesterone only pill.
I would bet so. Yeah.
That's interesting because I took that when I was breastfeeding. So.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. Yeah, any progestin base is definitely going to inhibit that, okay? So, I mean, it's, once again, how to check your mucus. A lot of times we can tell just when we wipe. Just pay attention. I mean, you can tell when you're having intercourse. Is it, you know, I mean, like I said, guys, it's getting dicey in here, but what does it feel like? Does it feel like things are more lubricated? Does it feel like it's more dry? You've got to pay attention to your body, okay? Because this lubricated fertile mucus is kind of, honestly, it's kind of like a jelly, kind of like a KY jelly. So you should feel a difference. When you, I'm never going to talk about this out loud. I'm keeping a serious face and I'm proud of myself, but this is tough. Okay. All right, so, makes sense though. And does everybody kind of know what I'm talking about? Like you've experienced that, you know it. Okay, awesome, good. All right, so this is important. Remember we talked about how the follicular phase can be long and drawn out. That will happen when we're stressed out. So it's like our body is stressed. We're in this chronic state of hyperstimulation, right? Chronic fight or flight mode. What happens is our body's like, let's gear up for ovulation, right? And you'll get some fertile mucus, but you're too stressed and your body says, I can't. And then it'll stop. Okay, and then a couple days later, you'll gear up for ovulation, you're too stressed, and it'll stop, right? Our bodies are really amazing, and they know that, hey, if you're going to conceive a baby, you need to be in a good, healthy internal environment, and stress is not healthy for conception and not healthy for pregnancy. So if you notice like a couple of stinges of, quit smiling at me, the fertile mucus, it's typically because, hey, your cycle's a little longer than normal, and it's probably because you're stressed out. So you may also have fertile mucus and actually not be ovulating, and this is where charting comes in handy, okay? So if you aren't experiencing this very friendly jelly, there's some reasons down here. We talked about diet, we've talked about stress, people who are on synthetic hormones, okay? And then prescription drugs. Isn't it interesting that Clomid will interfere with your ability to produce fertile mucus, yet it's supposed to get you pregnant? But Clomid is not, I mean, a lot of times people are on, what's the other drug that they put, thank you, metformin. It's actually a drug for diabetes, and they put women on it who are trying to conceive. So it's pretty wild. Okay, here we go. We're digging deep. This is like the ultimate. I'm pumped about this. Okay, charting made easy. Who in here has charted or besides Hillary? Anybody charted in here? A little bit. Okay, cool. All right, so you must use a digital basal thermometer for this because it's got to be digital and it's got to be the basal because you need it to go out to the 100th. So 0.00, 0.01. Most thermometers will say 98.6, not 0.60. Does that make sense? You need it to go to the 100th. You can take vaginal or oral temps. Either way, just make it consistent. Vaginal temps will be more accurate though because it's an internal temperature, more internal than an oral would. Okay. They have disposable covers, make it very easy, and these things are completely washable too, so you wash them with soap and water after you're done. You need to make sure to take your temperature at the same time every single morning, so within 30 minutes, before and after. Before getting out of bed, before talking to your spouse, before getting up and doing anything, you have to take your temperature, okay? So don't leave it in your bathroom, literally leave it at your bedside. Recorded immediately. They have so many apps anymore. Back when I was doing this, I had to do it on a computer called fertilityfriend.com. So I'd like go to my little computer afterwards and upload it. I'm not kidding. I'll show you pictures soon. But now you can just download an app, you input your temperature, and it'll actually start to graph it for you, which makes it really awesome. Okay, and then mark it on those apps too. You can mark down symptoms. So are you experiencing fertile mucus? Are you experiencing nipple sensitivity? Did you feel middle schmerz? You know, mark down the days that you had intercourse so you can see if you're timing your ovulation properly. Put that all in the app and then chart for a few months and look for a pattern, okay? Details for accuracy. So just to explain, if you normally wake at 6 a.m. for the day, you need a temp sometime between 5:30 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. for it to be truly accurate, okay? A lot of times in the app, it'll ask you what time you temped, and if you put like 8 a.m., they'll make it like a dashed line or something like that to let you know this temperature might not be really accurate, okay? I always tell people, set an alarm even on the weekends because you don't want your weekends to throw everything off. Most accurate after 5 hours of sleep and 3 hours consecutive sleep. So I always joke that toddlers and babies are kind of built-in birth control because a lot of moms are like, what, 3 hours uninterrupted sleep? That doesn't even happen, okay? So, all right. And you want to look for a temperature drop directly before ovulation. You won't always see that, but you might. And if you see it, it's a good sign that you should consider yourself very fertile, okay? So, shift. You want to see a shift of 0.4 degrees Fahrenheit over a 48-hour period. The cool thing is, though, you guys, is your app will do this for you. If your temp shifts 0.42 degrees and the next day it stays even higher, it's going to add your ovulation chart indicator where it does that crosshair that you can see on the picture there, okay? That is what you call a biphasic chart. I'm going to show you guys in a minute, but when you look at your picture, you can see those lower numbers are kind of under that line, right? Whereas the post-ovulatory numbers are above that line. So that's why it's called biphasic. So your follicular numbers, your temperature should be lower, and then your luteal phase, your number should be hotter, okay? At least 0.4 degrees. Let's see. That ovulation is the doorway between the shift of low temps to high temps. So note this though, if you have, like I talked about, if you have an ovulatory cycle, meaning you are ovulating, but your cycles are long, just know you're going to chart for days and days and days until you finally ovulate. But then post-ovulation, you should have 13 to 15 days accurately, consistently, okay? If your cycle is 40 days, and remember, you don't ovulate on day 14, and this is a huge, huge, huge mistake. Don't let it be your mistake. So, this is actually my chart. So once again, I'm being upfront and honest. This is a long time ago now, but fertilityfriend.com. Okay, so when did I ovulate, everybody? What day? Close, close. This is why I love this, because it makes it very user-friendly. So it actually adds your crosshairs on your day of ovulation. So here I was, right? I saw my temperature going down. You see these dotted lines too? Those were days that I didn't temp. This is actually shortly after one of my miscarriages, and so I was kind of down and out thinking, hey, I'm not going to try to conceive right now anyways, but I just kind of wanted to still understand my body. So I wasn't being very accurate with it. But you can see my cycle ended. Day 30, I finally ovulated, okay? So day 29, my cycle started dropping. I spiked up at least 0.4 degrees, and then I kept climbing. Right, so it automatically added that hash, those crosshairs right there telling me, all right, now you're post-ovulation. So then what happens is these numbers should stay hot, and they'll stay high if you get pregnant, and they'll drop back down if you go into a menstrual cycle. Make sense? I'm going to show you another picture too. But see, day 30, can you imagine, guys, if this is the sign of egg white for cervical mucus. Imagine if I probably thought, oh my gosh, day 18, right? And then I thought, day 23. You guys think I was stressed out a little bit this cycle? Like I said, I had just
Were
had
you doing
miscarriage.
ovulation testing on those 6
I've
as well?
never done those.
Oh, okay.
Nope. So I never did those to like test the accuracy just because I was so well educated in this and I felt like it was giving me all the answers. I was blown away. I'm going to tell you guys, and Dr. Riley can vouch for this, the first month that I did this, I was like, whoa, I'm not ovulating till like day 30 or at some points after in my cycle. I had no clue. And I was just thinking I had a really long cycle, but I had no stinking clue when ovulation was occurring. And then I did this, and it was like, no, no wonder. And we, at those couple times we did get pregnant, man, those were just luck, honestly. Because until Nora Jean's cycle in that stage, did I get really serious with my temping. Like you can see, I was kind of still like, I missed a couple days. So it adds those dotted lines to say, we don't know what happened in these days, but this is very accurate. This cycle is really cool too. So this is actually a positive pregnancy test cycle. Once again, you see the biphasic, right? So in the follicular phase, temps are low. We got a huge ovulation spike, temps stay high, the crosshairs get added. This person ovulated on day 23, okay? And then bam, once the line turns green, you know they've actually peed on its stick and it's been positive. So you see all these lines down here are showing positive marks. So that's what a pregnancy cycle would look like. You know, they tested early, actually day 9 days post ovulation, and then just kept temping for an extra couple of days, and you can see their temps stayed high. Does that make sense? So you want to see that biphasic jump from where it goes low to high, and your app is smart enough to actually add the crosshairs if you ovulate, okay? And then you look and you say, okay, what days did we have intercourse? This person timed it, I mean, overly good, you know? They nailed that, so obviously they conceived. So pretty cool though, right? And then finally, this is an important chart to see because this is an anovulatory chart, so there's no biphasic happening here, right? So this is somebody not ovulating, yep. This is somebody, we see a lot of this with like PCOS or something like that, where they don't ever ovulate, but they'll still have a cycle. So this person is thinking, I have a pretty regular 30-day cycle, right? But they bleed for several days too, like 9 days. That's an excessively long menstrual cycle. We were just talking about that. And they never, I mean, they think they see it spike and then nothing ever happens, right? So the chart was smart enough to say, hey, we're not adding any crosshairs here because we never saw an ovulation spike. Makes sense? This chart, you guys, is awesome. I'm telling you, it's like a lot of times it's the hidden key that people are missing because they just don't know how their body works, okay? All right. So, everybody feel like they can actually conquer that? Like if I had to, because my body wasn't so stinking regular and I was so in tune with it, I would use that for my natural family planning method. So people who want to not be on some sort of hormone or some sort of, have something inserted, a foreign body inserted into their body, even if it doesn't secrete hormones, this is a really good option. It's really, really great. You just have to tell your husband those 3 days, you steer clear of me, buddy, because you're going to know your body better, okay? All right, so I just got to jump in for a minute because a lot of people are like, where the heck does chiropractic fit in here, right? I didn't bring a spine, but I just kind of want to talk through it with you guys just briefly because I know I've already talked about the nerve system. I've talked about the health of the nerve system and how important that is for the hormones and for the chemicals, okay? But I wanted to make just a little bit of sense. So a subluxation is what we care for in our office, okay? What that is, and I'm going to walk you through it, is in your spine, a joint, 2 vertebrae are minorly misaligned, okay? There's a minor misalignment, joint misalignment. What happens when that occurs is you'll have soft tissue damage because the joint has moved, okay? And with that soft tissue damage, mainly in the disc, you can see the disc is irritated here, you'll get inflammation, okay? That inflammation is going to irritate the nerve root. What if this nerve root is the one that goes to supply your ovaries, right? What if that nerve root's the one that goes to supply your uterus? What if that nerve root's one of the nerve roots that goes to supply your pituitary gland where we release our hormones, or your fallopian tubes? I mean, that's where it really gets awesome. It's like there is inflammation and irritation on that nerve that could be supplying your reproductive organs. And it's like this for a long time because a lot of times people have subluxation in their spine and they don't know it because it can be very asymptomatic. Our bodies are awesome at adapting to stress, adapting to physical stress, but we'll hit a point where we can no longer adapt and we'll eventually become symptomatic, okay? But it's important to know that only 10% of our nerve system detects pain. The other 90% is all about function, okay? So you might not have back pain if you're having a problem in the lower spine that leads to the uterus, but you might have uterine dysfunction. So that's what we see in our office is we actually look for the areas of nerve system inflammation, nerve system damage, nerve system dysfunction, and figure out what exactly is that going to supply, and is this correlated? Does that make sense? And then if that's in the body for a long enough period of time, our muscles actually spasm to protect the joint, right? It's a smart response. The body says, oh my gosh, this bone's misaligned, it feels weak, it feels off, I'm going to stabilize it. So we get a strong muscle spasm, and then it's fixated that way, okay? So you've got a muscle spasm, a joint fixation, and now your body's stressed out, okay? If this is L1 and L2, and this nerve here goes to the uterus, and this joint is fixated, that nerve is stressed, okay? And it's going to be sending information up to the brain like, hey, we're stressed out here, this joint's, something's wrong, okay? It sends our brain into a chronic fight or flight response. fight or flight response is not good for making babies, right? You're not gonna conceive in an alley when you're running from a stranger, right? We need that rest and digest mode, okay? So chronic subluxation, no matter where it is in the body, but especially if it's affecting your fertility organs, is not conducive for conception. So in our office, as you can tell, like I said before, we do things different. We do like a very, very different type of an exam. For most chiropractors that they do, or even any other medical doctors or holistic practitioners, we take a unique approach, and we're actually trying to figure out what's going on in the nerve system, and is that part of the problem with the inability to conceive, okay? And remember, the reproductive system is not essential for survival, so it's gonna take a hit if you've got nerve system problems going on in your body. So, I want to just explain something here for a minute. You guys can tell I'm passionate about this, and like I said, I've never spoken out loud about it, and it was really fun, but I want to help. I want to help more than just teaching you in here. I want to be kind of like your health coach. I want to be your fertility coach on this, if it's something that you're looking for. So I want to explain what we do in our office. When somebody comes in, we sit down, we have a really detailed consultation with that person. We get their health challenges, we get their health goals, we figure out where they're at today, okay? Then we perform an exam that's unique to them, right? We do posture pictures, we do range of motion, a full neuromuscular exam, we do thermography readings, and then ultimately we take full spine digital x-rays so that we can match everything together. At that point, we can figure out, is subluxation occurring in this person's spine, where, and is it affecting their health and affecting their ability to reproduce? So that's kind of our bread and butter. That's how we start with the patient to figure out, can we help, right? And most people will come to me and say, I've tried everything for infertility. And I'm like, really? I've never met you. Hi, I'm Dr. Heather. You haven't tried me, right? So I love what I do. We get great results in our office with stuff like this. And like I said, most people have had their blood chemistry tested. I know I did when I was having miscarriages because I was confused, right? But a lot of people haven't had their nerve system tested, and that's what we do. So I want to offer everybody in this room that's